Hey coaches, in this video we are going to be looking at how the idea of fixed and growth mindsets also applies not only to the life of the individual that we're coaching, but within the coaching space, what's happening between the coach and the client, particularly how the coach's questions and observations may be leveraging and enhancing a fixed mindset or leveraging, enhancing, cultivating a growth mindset. Of course, as coaches, we want to make sure whatever we do, whatever we provide in our coaching sessions, cultivates that sense of growth mindset. Anything we do around fixed mindset, we would tend to do intentionally, highlighting the differences of questions, or we may kind of semi-educate, briefly sharing the differences between the two for illustration and then learning from that and application. What we want to avoid between fixed and growth mindset and coaching is just stumbling into a series of questions that fixes the individual's, the client's mind around themselves, or offer acknowledgments that highlight the fixedness of a client rather than how they are growing. So let's take a look at some fixed questions versus growth questions to start. Fixed questions, the easier ones to have a sense of are the closed ones that demonstrate a sense of doubt. Do you really think you would be able to do that? Will you be able to accomplish this goal? And so on. There's this tone of doubt from the coach. Oftentimes this is when a coach is experienced in a space and has a doubt that the individual, the client, is going to be able to accomplish this. So they're wanting to create a bit of awareness of the challenges that this individual would face or how possible this is going to be. But instead of making an observation about what they know and getting the client's response, they just express doubt and lock this client in with that doubt. It creates a psychologically unsafe environment when the coach is asking these doubting questions. Do you really think that's doable over the next 3 years? And so on. An alternative would be, how possible is this for you? And especially if, so there's a way you can ask this next question. What could you do to make this more possible? That's fine. But the challenge is, if they weren't even using the language of more possible, if the client's not even talking as if this was a difficult thing, for the coach to say, well, what could you do to make this like more possible? That's just a different context and tone to that question, but it is expressing a sense of, I don't think you are a capable individual who is able to accomplish this goal. So there's that sense of promoting a fixed mindset through that question. What about you might get in the way? And this is a template question that I'm putting here on the slide. It's more, what about your past that we know? What about your current skills? What about you is going to get in the way of accomplishing this goal? We can highlight obstacles. We can ask questions about a known challenge and how they're going to leverage that, overcome it. But as the coach is using their language to challenge a growth-oriented direction for a client, challenge the client to really think about how they can rise to the occasion, we want to make sure that our words aren't subtly suggesting that we don't actually think they are the type of individual who can achieve what they want to achieve. So be very mindful of the way these questions that you're asking come across. Am I asking the question in a way that highlights this person's not able to change, transform, or grow? Let's look at the opposite end for growth-oriented questions, growth mindset questions, those questions that cultivate the sense of, I'm able to learn and stretch and be challenged through this experience. So questions might be, how can you grow to make the most of this opportunity? There's not a sense of doubt. There's just a sense of opportunity. There's a sense of growth. There's a sense of learning. How can you grow to make the most of this opportunity? How has your life prepared you for the challenge of this moment? This is a past to present, and it's an opportunity for them to tell the a growth-oriented narrative to help them remember who they are becoming through this experience. So how has your past, how has your story up to this point prepared you for this moment in your life? Who are you becoming through this challenge? So it goes beyond, who do you want to be in this challenge? That's kind of neither growth or fixed. It's who are you becoming? How are you growing through this challenge? And what will this challenge demand of you? It's a way to say, hey, this is going to be difficult, but it's focusing on how is this individual I'm coaching, this brilliant person, going to rise to that challenge? What will the challenge demand of you? Of course, you can always ask about learning, growth, and so on. All the questions around awareness and identity that are looking kind of at how this individual is moving forward with themselves, their learning, their understanding. Those are the types of questions we can leverage for a growth mindset. Now let's look at acknowledgments. We've talked about it before, but there's a distinction that we make in our assessments that's very important around fixed and growth mindsets. As you saw in the Carol Dweck video, when teachers and systems promote the best behavior and say that this is their identity, you are a smart person. Great, you're a smart person. Great, I love this. There's a validation of who they are, not who they have become, not the effort they put into it, not the qualities they demonstrated. And this is not only true for a 5-year-old on a math app, but it's also true for an executive in a corporate space. The acknowledgments that the coach offers need to be authentic, but growth-oriented. So as we've said before, avoid the simple validation of, great, I love this, I like this. Because the coach's validation is not what we're wanting to leverage here. It's not ever really the point of an acknowledgement. We also want to avoid, wow, you're so smart. Wow, you're so creative. And so on. These, who they are right now and not who they're becoming. In a way, it's saying, because you got the right answer here, you are demonstrating that you are the person who can get right answers. And that is a fixed mindset, because the moment they struggle to find the right answer and they end a session and there's no right answer, well, they're not the type of person who can achieve success with that agenda. We want to avoid setting things up for failure in fixed mindsets by validating who the person is when they get the right thing in a coaching session. Alternatively, we do want to leverage growth mindset acknowledgments. Client, you've done a lot of great work here. You've challenged yourself, and I appreciate how well you struggled through this difficult question. You're highlighting what effort they've put in. And you could say that, whether or not they really got what they most wanted out of the session or not. I appreciate how much you've struggled well through this difficult question that no one else in your life can answer for you. We can acknowledge courage, vulnerability, when an individual shares something or says something that's deep and significant, something that is requiring them to be vulnerable and open about themselves. To say, client, you've shown up with a lot of courage here. And I can imagine that's not easy for you, because I would find it to be a bit of a struggle of myself. So thank you for how willing you are to challenge yourself and to demonstrate vulnerability here in this session. This is how they are showing up in a way that is offering themselves towards growth. They are stepping in a space of coaching so that they can grow. So their courage, their vulnerability, thank them for that, not their right answers, not the fact that they answered the questions really well. They've put in the effort, they've struggled, they've demonstrated courage, they demonstrated vulnerability. And finally, we can, of course, acknowledge their growth and qualities. Since the beginning of our time together, you at the beginning you were struggling with this, and I could even hear it in the way you spoke about your manager and your conversations with her. And here you've seen so much growth in our conversations and the conversations and feedback you've received from her. You've put so much effort in. You've done so much great work in becoming a stronger version of yourself. Thank you. So it's looking at the growth over time, becoming someone new. Those acknowledgments are particularly significant because they can highlight how this person isn't right or wrong, but they are in a narrative of growth. They are in a journey of development. In our coaching, much of our work is art, and we have to struggle with that. There's a science behind it, but much of the work in the moment is the art. And our habits will make it hard for us to come up with the best questions in the moment. We need to acknowledge the fact that we are in a growth experience ourselves, but we can never use that as an excuse to justify poor questions. So we always want to look at those questions that we've asked, assess them after a session personally, looking and grading our recordings and thinking, the way I subtly said that, I think I might have heard a sense of, this is who you are, client, or I doubt who you are, client, instead of, client, who are you becoming and how are you growing? It's always an edge of growth, an opportunity for growth for a coach. So don't be overly hard on yourself, but be hard on yourself at the same time. There's so much to do, so much to learn as coaches.